Did Inflation Reduction Act reduce the CO2 emission? This is the topic of this video. In 2022, the Congress and the Senate in the United States passed a law called Inflation Reduction Act, and it was signed into law by President Biden with great fanfare. It fights the climate change through various subsidies and tax credits, and it was expected to reduce the CO2 emission by 40% by 2030. This particular table shows you how much money was spent in providing the subsidies for renewable energy, and the total cost of the credits is expected to be about $369 billion over the next 10 years. Some people claim that it could be even higher than that based on the tax credits companies will receive. At the 1 year anniversary of Inflation Reduction Act, which happened in August of 2023, the White House claimed that the Inflation Reduction Act is putting America on a path to achieve the goal of reducing the emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. I wanted to check to see if this number jives with the reality. So I looked at Energy Information Administration, which is the official government agency which looks at all the energy projections. They just published the annual energy outlook in 2023, and according to them, compared to 2005, there has been already 18% reduction in the CO2 emission because of conversion of coal-fired power plants to natural gas-fired power plants. But by 2030, it is expected that there will be about 26% reduction in the CO2 emission if there was no Inflation Reduction Act, and about 35% reduction with Inflation Reduction Act by 2031. So I looked at the numbers with and without Inflation Reduction Act. The solid line represents how much reduction we would expect in the CO2 emission without Inflation Reduction Act, and the dotted line represents how much reduction we would expect with IRA. And then this line represents how much CO2 emission reduction we will have because of IRA every year. So calculating the total amount of CO2 which will be removed over the next 10 years because of IRA, it's about 1.7 billion tons of CO2. And the cost is estimated to be about 369 billion. So the cost for every ton of CO2 removed will be about $212 per ton. This is significantly higher than buying a carbon credit for every ton, which runs about $40 to $80 per ton. But this is not the entire story, because while we celebrated 1 year anniversary of Inflation Reduction Act, we also were increasing the oil production in the United States over the last 12 months. And not only we were increasing the oil production, we were also increasing the gas production over the last 12 months. And this is because we are exporting significant amount of energy, either oil or gas, to other countries, which will eventually burn into carbon dioxide. There was not a significant increase in the coal production, but there was definitely increase in oil and gas production. So if you look at the amount of CO2 that will be emitted by increasing the oil and gas production over the last 12 months, you can see there is a significant increase in millions of tons of CO2 which will be was emitted in the last 1 year. And if you sum that, the total amount of CO2 which would have been emitted in the last 12 months because of increased oil and gas production, it's about 181 million tons. The total reduction in the CO2 emission from 22 to 23 in the US is about 80 million. So because of our exports in oil and gas, we actually increased the total CO2 emission by 100 million tons. Now we can do the same calculation over the next 10 years as the Inflation Reduction Act progresses. And what we see is that over the 10 years, there will be always an increase in the CO2 emission as we consume more fossil fuels because of the export of oil and gas compared to the reduction because of IRA. For the first 7 years of IRA's life, the total amount of CO2 which will be emitted will increase. Only in the last 3 years, where the projections are always suspect, you will see some increase in the CO2 emission because of the Inflation Reduction Act. When you look at over 10-year period, we will increase our CO2 emission by 600 million tons. Simply providing the subsidies for alternate energy will never reduce the CO2 emission because people from other countries will buy the energy which is relatively cheap, and that is going to result in additional increase in the CO2 emission. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please subscribe my channel. Thank you.